Hello and welcome to this episode of the International Daily Roundup. Our first story, we're talking about Palestine, where one Palestinian was killed and two were injured when Israeli air forces carried out strikes in Gaza on Saturday. The victim was identified as Ahmed al-Tahri, who was 27 years old. The strikes were reportedly conducted in a response to the rocket fire from Gaza on the previous day against Israel. No one was injured in these attacks. Israeli air forces reportedly targeted the bases of the Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Attacks by Israel had reduced after an unofficial ceasefire over the past few months. In exchange for Hamas agreeing to stop rocket attacks, Israel had promised to ease the 13-year-old blockade, and that has had severe impact on life in Gaza. Israeli forces were also injured as many as 90 people during the Great March of Return protests on Friday. The march has been held every Friday since the last year, demanding the right to return of the Palestinians who were expelled during the formation of Israel in 1948. The protesters are also seeking the easing of the blockade. Moving on, hundreds of residents of New York City came out in protest over the weekend against the police violence and the high fares in the city's iconic subway system. The protests were in response to several incidents on Friday of police violently confronting passengers who may have been suspected of fare jumping. In a recent incident, a group of policemen charged at a subway train pointing guns, only to catch a man they suspected of fare jumping and of possessing a gun. In the video that went viral on social media, the man who calmly responded to the police was forcefully pinned down by multiple police officials. This is only the latest of the many instances of disproportionate reactions by the police for fare jumping, especially on people of color. Protesters have highlighted the exorbitant fares on the service. An average ride in New York in the subway costs about $2.75 to $3 currently, which is the highest fare in the country. The Metropolitan Transit Authority, or the MTA, the agency that operates the city's public transport network, have been in the red recently due to the plummeting investments by the city's administration. The MTA's response was to hike fares. Even though some instances of violent confrontation with the police and vandalism of public transport infrastructure were reported, the protests remained largely peaceful. Democratic Congresswoman representing the city, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has also extended her support to the protests. Around 1,350 delegates from over 86 countries took part in the Anti-Imperialist Solidarity Meeting for Democracy and Against Neoliberalism, which was held in Havana in Cuba from November 1st to 3rd. The primary objective of the meeting was to express and to support and extend solidarity with the Cuban Revolution in the face of harsh economic sanctions and commercial blockade against the country, which is being imposed by the US. Another important objective of the conference was to strengthen support for other anti-imperialistic, anti-neoliberal, democratic and social justice processes in the continent. In this regard, it was decided that the rebellion of the Chilean people, the popular uprising in Haiti, the battle that the Bolivian President Evo Morales and the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro are fighting, and the struggle of the Brazilian people for Lula's freedom, among others, must be the priorities for the attention of the social movements and left-wing parties. During the conference, the fascist attitude of the Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was also rejected. The Colombian government was asked to implement the peace agreements with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and it was also asked to resume dialogue with the National Liberation Army. The delegates expressed solidarity with and paid tribute to the victory of the leftist Alberto Fernandez in the Argentine general elections. The struggle of Puerto Ricans for their independence and the struggle that the Palestinian people have been fighting and carrying out for years. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, the first secretary of the Cuban Communist Party, Raul Castro, and the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel were among those who attended the conference. And with that, it's a wrap on this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To follow these stories, our videos, and many more updates, log on to our website www.peoplesdispatch.org. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching.